All right, hello everyone. Welcome to a discussion of The Bound and the Broken. Specifically, we're going to be talking about The Fall, the first novella in the series, and A Blood and Fire, the first full-length novel in the series. We're all holding up our editions. I am the loser here with the paperbacks. We've got
Hey,
we've
Philip, it
got
has the same words in it, I
it has
promise.
the same words.
Yeah, same words.
John and Christopher are there with the hardcovers, and Mike
Yes,
has the real thing right
the
there.
real deal.
The
I think the
broken
back, I
binding
think the
edition.
Those
back
are
of this one might be
the
even
artwork on
nicer.
that is
Jeez.
Oh
amazing.
man.
Is
Those are
that Felix
gorgeous.
Ortiz?
This is the fall. What? I'm sorry. What was the question?
Is that Felix Ortiz art or is that somebody else?
I should know this. I do not. I
Pressure's
do
on.
not. That's the thing. Is like I've been working with Patrick and Matt to work on the art for Sun Eater, and basically is like I'm on the panel to nod and smile because Patrick's got that under control. So Patrick's the guy to ask about art because that guy's got a career in art direction if he wants it, no doubt.
Oh man, he
Does.
he is a talented dude, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So I haven't even introduced you guys yet. I'm really happy to be joined here today by my friends, and we are very excited to be talking about this series that Mike has basically, you're responsible, Mike. So if we all hated this, it would be your fault, but
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're safe.
I was pretty sure about you. I knew that you would like it because this, I mean, honestly, Philip loves everything. That's what I love about him. But I just knew that this was going to be one that you dug for sure. Now, the other two guys, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. We're all on the edge of our seats here. John, from Talking Story, so happy to see you, my friend. And
Mutual.
Christopher, it's the first time we're in a discussion together. I'm really happy that this brings us together, and my friend Mike, of course. And
I'm honored that you, LA Knight, took time out of the WWE wrestling circuit to come and join the show, man. I'm really, really excited to meet you. I really like. My kids are a big fan.
Awesome.
Not WWE fans will have no idea what that means. Never mind.
But we are also, I do want to mention that one of our friends is not here. Angela from Do Unicorns Read was going to be with us, but she is unfortunately a bit under the weather. Hopefully she will be able to join us the next time. And we haven't actually figured out who's going to be hosting the next discussion, but we'll all be announcing it as we approach. I'll probably ask you, John, to do that since you and I were the initial the people who set this up. So if you don't mind, everyone, John Talking Story is going to be hosting the next discussion.
Would love to.
Awesome. So I want to start with Mike because Mike is about to go on a cruise and out of the kindness of his heart has essentially agreed to come here. And I want to give you a chance to just gush if you want, or tell us, what do you love about this series? Why have you been basically singing the praises of The Bound and the Broken? And yeah, what is it that you see in this series? Just any general comments you want to make about it?
I guess what I think I like the most about it is it feels kind of like a throwback to that fantasy that I grew up reading, but it also has like a modern touch to it. Now, a lot of people think when I say it has a modern touch, oh, does that mean it's got bad language in it? No, that's not what I mean. I just mean it has some things where, as traditional, longtime traditional fantasy fans, where we can be like, well, I've read this story before. I feel like he does enough to make it feel different, make it feel fresh. He doesn't pretend that he's reinventing the wheel when it comes to Dragon Rider traditional fantasy, but he does enough that it feels different. And I feel like the only people who really have any problems with that are Wheel of Time fans, because Wheel of Time fans are very, very overprotective of the material, and whenever they're like, "Oh, this story has 3 guy friends in it," oh no, this story has fades in it. Well, the Nazgul called, they'd like their robes back, from the Wheel of Time. So I tell people all the time, when you're dealing with traditional fantasy, a lot of these things are going to feel recycled because obviously Ryan wears a lot of his influence on his sleeve. He's a huge Wheel of Time fan. He's a huge Tolkien fan. So you're going to see those things kind of wrapped in the story. But I feel like it's fresh enough and it's different enough. And it feels like kind of like a John Gwynn in a way where it's like highly readable. It doesn't dumb it down because there's so many characters and regions and lands and kingdoms and history. And it'll just have you just speculating in a way that I haven't speculated or theorized since I read Song of Ice and Fire for the first time. So to me, that's the highest of praise I can give it. I got some Tolkien, I got some Wheel of Time, and I got some Song of Ice and Fire in here. It has pretty much everything that I'm looking for. And in the end, guys, dragons are what brought me to this genre, and these are awesome freaking dragons.
Nice. Beautifully said. Yeah, when I read it myself, the first vibe I got was Faithful in the Fall in terms of just the tone of it and the pacing. Because when you said modern, I think the pacing feels very modern. But
yeah, I never feel like you're just kind of dragging through the mud or anything. But yeah, I got a lot of Faith from the Fall and a lot of Brian Lee Durfee's Five Warrior Angels and kind of like the beginning. But just the traditional group of friends from the village, farm boy leaves home kind of story.
Yeah.
Running from a dark lord. These are things that we've seen a million times, but I never get tired of these things. I don't think tropes is a bad word. I like fancy tropes. I'm here for them.
I'm totally agree with you there. Yeah. And is Aragon also an influence? Because I felt Aragon in there as well.
I asked him about that, and he said, obviously you're dealing with, a young kid with a dragon egg. Of course, people are going to kind of go to that.
Yeah.
He said, I won't pretend that I didn't read it,
Right.
but he said, no, it wasn't really as much of an influence for him as everybody wants to
Unconscious
assume.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I want to get some other impressions here, just general impressions. John, what were your thoughts as you were reading this?
Well, I got to thank Mike again, man. He has yet every time. First of all, he's killed my wallet. He's killed my TBR since I discovered BookTube.
Can't
Mike
stop, won't stop.
Oh my God. And this is why he's killed it. Every time I do reach for it or pick it up and actually read it, I dig it, man. I dig it. I mean, there was so much, and when I came to BookTube, it's like there's a lot of fantasy I have to catch up on. Like I haven't done John Gwynne yet. I haven't, from Robert Jordan on. But this is one of those flashlight reads that takes me back to when I was a kid and I was supposed to be sleeping and I was under the blanket. This is Raymond D. Feist. This is C.S. Lewis. This is Tolkien. This is that. I don't like the way trope and tropey is used as a negative or pejorative and either, it's like I've eaten a lot of bowls of Irish stew. It's the same potatoes, carrots, and meat, and it's like I dig it every time.
Right.
So I to me, I don't think that's a bad thing. It's what I grew up loving. It's what I grew up finding the magic between these book covers that make me keep coming back again and again. So it makes me feel like a kid again. And there is enough little tweaks, enough little differences that I'm sure we'll get into that's like, oh, now that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I don't even see the influences of like some of the masters he grew up reading, I grew up reading. I see some of the cinematic influences that we've all grown up loving the genre seeing, that some of the newer people taking top spin on some of the past greats can conjure up, so props to Mike yet one more time.
Perfect batting average. Yeah. Nice. All right, Christopher, I would love to hear your initial impressions having read The Fall and Blood and Fire. What are you thinking?
Well, first off, right off the bat, I think Ryan Cahill shows his diversity with these two books, reading them both at this, right consecutively right after each other. The Fall reads so differently from Of Blood and Fire, and immediately, wow, I'm not usually the biggest fan of novellas because I like to be immersed in a world, and it's so funny to me how well, not funny, but he sparked so much emotion in that little 80-page novella, and how he was able to compel characterization in just those 80 pages, and not just one character. He used 4 different POVs in The Fall, and I was just amazed on how diverse those voices sounded, and how immediately, like I said, you sparked so much emotion. And then when you get into A Blood and Fire, then that was totally unexpected to me. I didn't expect and I was telling John this earlier, I didn't expect such a young voice to tell such kind of a traditional fantasy story. Like Mike was mentioning, the stories that we fell in love with when we were kids, the chosen one, the reluctant hero, the coming of age story, and having those boys. And I grew up on Wheel of Time, but I appreciated that. I appreciated his little touch of books that he probably read himself when he created this world. But it's this modern voice that he gives to the stories that I think shows off really well. He starts off with the things we love and makes it his own. And I was not bored with any single page on that book. Every chapter had something going on, whether character development, all the tavern scenes that we get, is those character moments, and then I can see Ryan Cahill with his buddies going to like some pub and having these fun conversations and banter with each other and throwing axes and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say, you're talking about the axe throwing scene.
so I see that the characters were real to me, and I think he just it was just the fun read that I wanted. I going back to those days of those fun classic, Terry Brooks kind of a little bit with the classic races of elves, dwarves, of course, Lord of the Rings, all of those influences were there. And the dragons, yeah. I mean, when we get to that part, I was just, he did those so well for me.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a page turner, I would say, and
Yeah.
did feel some of the vibes that I felt as probably around 12 when I started playing D&D. And it was just that fun, that camaraderie, that just both within the game but also with your friends, hanging out and rolling the dice. And this brought back a lot of good memories for me too, for sure. So let's get into the fall. I think most of us now. I read the fall first. John, you were going to
Everybody start with the fall.
Okay, no, you read the fall first. Okay.
I did change my mind. I said I was going to be the one who reads A Blood and Fire, but I couldn't. I read the fall first.
I recommend that people start with the fall, because if you read A Blood and Fire, you think, oh, this is just another traditional fantasy story. If you start with the fall, it gives you a better snapshot of just how epic and scale the series will get. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. I mean, no, Philip being the Malazan guy here, he probably appreciates this, but I'm not crazy about a meteorite where you're just completely dropped and you have no idea what's going on. But with that, I was like, okay, I want to know more about this Soul Blade, because that's amazing. I got to get me one of them. I have to have one. So I'm still waiting for Ryan to send me one of those. And I just, dragons just blowing shit up and just fight. I'm just awesome. I don't even know what anybody's fighting about. I don't care. This is amazing. So I was sucked right in with the fall.
Yeah. So, but I forgot to say, everyone, spoilers for the fall. If you
yeah.
I wasn't sure how far we were going to go with the
dragons make fire, blow stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking full
fall.
spoilers.
Things fall.
Yes. Yeah. As the title conveys. So yeah, no, well said. It does throw you right into the story, and you get this epic backdrop, which does, I have to say, just as a general observation, I'm glad I read the fall first, because it did give me a bit of context, and I met some characters in Blood and Fire that I recognized, obviously, from the fall. I'm like, I know that guy, even before they said the character's name.
Mm-hmm.
So that gave me a little bit of a yay.
To me, in that Robert Jordan way, it felt like one of his 90-page prologues before Wheel of Time book. Because he'll have those prologues. You're like, what did that have to do with anything? Well, you'll find out in 5 books. That's kind of how Robert Jordan would do it. But that's what that felt like to me. If you read it that way, it felt like a really long prologue.
Yeah, well said. John, what did you think of the fall?
I really loved starting it first, and I've said before, you get like this empire crumbling, basically, right? Like you get the end of an empire, and the launch of another empire, and you have these huge, iconic, larger than life, nearly immortal type characters wrapped up in this battle as one empire gives way to another. It's sweeping, it's grand, it's opera, right? And then when you downshift to this, and you have just a simple farm boy coming of age story, and you start to see like, oh, wait a minute, that bard is not just a bard. These are these larger than lives iconic characters popping in and amongst this tapestry that makes you think, okay, this is more than just a little coming of age story. They're getting their pieces set on their board. They're moving them just right. They're doing, like, there's a lot going on that I probably wouldn't have seen had I not started with that first. So I really appreciated starting with first.
When you see Aeson show up in A Blood and Fire, it's like, oh my God, what? This was like 400 years ago. What's going on here? Yeah. So that, to me, that was why it was really, really meaningful to read the fall first.
Exactly.
I mean, being a Drelade has its perks,
It does. And it has its drawbacks as well.
I guess he's a Rakina, though, so I guess the longevity still stays with him even after.
So, Philip, being the linguist here, how are you feeling about this nice little language that Ryan is kind of, a lot of apostrophes, right? So
that's my favorite part. I love
apostrophes. I
love dead languages and made up languages, both. So yeah. But Christopher, what did you think of The Fall as a kind of a setup and as a way to get into the series?
No, again, I agree. I think I'm glad I definitely read The Fall first. I think I needed, a little pop, and he goes right into it. Um, I I loved how established everything can get in just this 80-page book. It's just mind-boggling to me how he's able to compel all of that action and still character growth, and then the build and the bond between the dragon and the rider. And I think that's very prominent and very good to know when we meet Caden in or if that's his name. Am I pronouncing that right, Caden?
Kaylin.
Kaylin, that's right. And I think that's very prominent to know that information ahead of time. So when we meet Kaylin and he gets his own dragon, spoiler warning, we get that connection. We already know what that's about, and we know the ramifications of that breaking of that bond, and we get that with The Fall. And I just, like I said, I'm amazed on how he was able to put together a multiple POV novella in just a few pages and just tell a fantastic battle sequence.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I got some serious Fall of Gondolin vibes from The Fall of Ilnaean, I mean, and that does add such richness, like in Lord of the Rings, when you have a lore, when you have a history, when you have a mythos that goes back thousands of years. It adds richness to the present. It's one of the things that I love about fantasy, and I'm sure the three of you as well. We just love that sense of the layers of the past and looking back at the people who came before us and the losses they suffered and the lives they live and the beauties and the joys and the sorrows they all lived through. And that adds such richness to the present as we see them, and we're seeing ourselves in a mirror, in a sense, as we look back on those remnants of the past. And that is something that I love, that is set up by having The Fall being part of this entire series. It does add richness to Of Blood and Fire in a way that I really love. So I'm glad I read it first, Mike. Good advice again.
Now, when people ask, which one should I start with? Don't tell them anymore that it's up to you. Just tell them to start with The Fall.
Yeah,
but make sure you read them
Yeah.
together, though, because if you just read The Fall first and then decide if you're going to read the series, then you might be like, well, it didn't make any sense. Yeah, it's really not supposed to.
Yeah.
So
I would, from here on, I will definitely say read The Fall first. And the thing about lore, coming Dr. Chase before, is like the lore is as we get further and further removed from it, it becomes misty and legendary and story, and it's the story that defines us and makes us going forward, right? And one more thing before we leave The Fall, I wanted to say a little bit of that modern twist that I really liked is I can't remember the character's name, but the one that kind of was the big turncoat that brought about the entire
Eltor.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love that he's in a modern way of telling a story, not a mustache twirling villain. I mean, here's somebody that can absolutely look at himself in the mirror, thinks he's doing the best for his people, the best for his civilization. He's tired of beating his head against the wall for this bureaucracy and walking in lockstep. He feels like revolution must happen. And it's like he is answering to what he feels are his greater angels. And it's like I can attach myself to those decisions. And I just really appreciated that, as opposed to just, well, this is the birth of a Dark Lord, and it's,
I'm glad you said that, because it's one of the things I love about this series as it goes on is you get point of view from the villains of the story. You see that they don't think they're the bad guys, and they have good motivations. Really, they're doing things for their people. I love that.
I do too. And even
hey, I'm like evil because. Yeah, well, the story needs a bad guy,
Exactly. And by the end of The Fall, even in the end of this first 80 pages, I mean, you have some doubts about, you didn't say it was going to be this. You didn't say this, we were doing that, and it's like I could already start to see, but he's all in at this point. He's pushed his chips in, like there's no backing out. So
it's like he still tries to hold on to the relationships he had with his fellow Dreylid, and it's funny to me that
Elvira, especially.
Elvira, especially. It's funny that when you're reading the beginning part, you do think he's that like you mentioned, that Blake villain. He is that villain of the story, and then you get his conflicting emotions.
You guys
Oh,
can see
wow.
this. This is where it
Oh,
destroys
that's
all
so
the eggs.
awesome.
Wow, that is cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah.
outraged about that. Yeah. Oh, and there's this dragon.
It's like,
Yeah.
I meant it, but not that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I kind of envision it exactly like that. I think Ryan did
Yeah,
a good
that is
job
that is gorgeous.
describing that scene. So yeah.
So is it fair to characterize Eltuar as kind of like Darth Vader to Fane's Emperor Palpatine? Is that what we got going on here?
Yes, but becoming Darth Vader was the right decision.
Yeah.
So.
I
Yeah.
definitely got a lot of Star Wars from this. I felt influences from Lucas in this.
Huh.
Well, yeah, the knights have lightsabers.
They have lightsabers. Yeah, exactly. And that's so freaking cool. I mean,
It's another one we
Yeah.
told me. I was like, this is like a mix of Green Lantern and Star Wars, man. I love
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
awesome.
great.
Man.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Can we just sit here and let Mike show us all?
Yeah,
you
we'll
wanna
just
do
look at the
picture books?
pictures.
I can do the picture books. Yeah.
It's better than anything we've got to say.
Oh man, anything else from the fall, guys, that you want to remark on? It's great setup. We've got some great dynamics there. I agree with the nuance that you're seeing in the quote unquote villains. Clearly the villains, but still they're not just evil for evil's sake, right?
I think something that I said where I feel like it takes stuff you've heard before but makes it more modern is, for example, I read a lot of Dragon Rider fantasy. You'd always see that, oh, well, if the dragon rides, the rider dies too, or if the rider dies, the dragon dies too. But this, it's like, no, one of you can die. It's so much worse. It's so much
Yeah.
worse if you live. You know,
It's almost like worse
you're
than
just
death, yeah.
permanently broken, man. And like, it's not
Yeah.
anything you get over. You just learn to live with the pain. It's just like excruciating. I think
know
that's
what we
a great touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what a good name for this series would be? The Bound and the Broken.
The Bound and the Broken. Yeah.
I am curious about the Uraks, and
orcs.
obviously
The
there's
orcs.
a lot of orc there.
Yeah, there's a lot of work in there.
There's a lot of orc there, but I'm curious. I would love to have like an Urak POV or something at some point. I don't know if Ryan Cahill ever does that or not, but
Mike.
would you guys like that?
I think that you get lots of POVs from people that you weren't going to be expecting it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I do really like that Mike said we get POVs from some of the darker characters, because it just at the end of this, I think this is such an interesting character arc where he feels, I can just see him struggling to hold on to his humanity, and to me, that's such an amazing.
I mean, not as good as what Mike's showing us, but there's our.
Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. I don't even have that. Huh.
Oh, you have to have the hardcover for that, I think.
Oh. Well, oh well. Now a little bit about these knights of was it Acheron? The Knights of Acheron.
Okay.
They're a totally different deal from the Dralade, and they're, they seem like a noble group that I haven't really quite figured them out yet. We do get the POV of Kalinvar, and we did see one of them show up in Of Blood and Fire, I believe, to rescue Ella at night in the one city. So I don't know if that was in fact Kalinvar. I'm suspecting that probably it was. We did get a brief moment with them in the beginning of Blood and Fire as well, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
He's there.
it's sort of the
Kalinvar's
prequel of that one. Yeah.
definitely there, but for me at the moment, I feel like I know the least about these dudes, and they just seem to be kind of like protectors, but they're totally separate from the Dralade, and they seem to be, from what I read in A Blood and Fire, they've been largely MIA for the last few hundred years. Is that fair? Did you guys get that sense you got about those dudes?
Yeah, you learn a lot more about them as you go along. But
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say
I
I'm
really
right.
should not comment.
I'd say, yeah, I get a Knights of the Round Table feel about them. They've got they've got a code. Might does not make right. That, the same type of ethical Arthurian code, a round table. They've got it's almost a Justice League with a bit of portal magic that they can zip to where the problems are as they're trying to protect
the rift,
these disparate kingdoms. Yeah.
Right.
So a bit of portal magic that was awesome. But no, I thought I thought he pops up again in here when he saves the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think they did disappear because they got their asses handed to them. So, handily.
It seems like a Drelade outclasses a Knight of Acheron. Of course, having a dragon probably helps.
Well, that would, yeah.
I appreciate that he keeps those mysteries for the first two books. It's something, of course, to look forward to in future books. And I'm glad we just got that taste of it, because that was a question for me. It's like, oh man, bring on the Knights again. I want to know more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we find out where they've been licking their wounds all this time.
I think you guys will really like Of Darkness and Light.
Okay.
Oh. I love how you're the guy who's ahead in the series and you got to keep a poker face.
So, Philip, Animal Companions. Tell me, everyone here is a Fenrir fan, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the best destroyed.
There he is.
That's
like when all the stuff was going down, I was like, okay, don't hurt the wolf.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, that was me getting a lot of John Gwynne vibes there with Storm. So I was really, I think, really excited. For me, it's like, it's a coming of age story. Of course the parents got to go. Just don't hurt the dog. That's just pretty much how I always am. Like, I mean, the parents are expendable, but not the dog, not the family dog.
Yeah. I'm always that way too. I'm like, not the what? Not the dog. Not the
when Kaelin got his dragon, I was like, well, what about Fener?
Yeah, he's going to feel very, very replaced, isn't he?
Yeah. But
then
Ella's got him. Ella's got him.
He's got the
now,
sister. Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Ella's got him now. So.
And I haven't done John Gwynne, but it's like Mike, you mentioned Brian Durfee. So for me, it was like, oh, here we go with Beer Mug all over again. When he showed when he
by the way,
showed back up again.
Greatest companion pet name ever, Beer Mug.
Beer Mug.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to talk about with The Fall, what are some of the tie-ins that you noticed? Obviously, Aeson is a really important one, and he appears as a kind of Obi-Wan kind of figure in A Blood and Fire, although he has kids. He has two sons, so that's a nice twist, I thought, on that character. But he's a lot like the Braun figure. I think he was called Braun in Aragon. Did you guys read Aragon?
I haven't read Aragon.
Oh, okay. Similar kind of role, I felt, at least at first. I'm curious to see where he's going with that. Other tie-ins, though, Theron obviously was there back in the day. And other characters that did you notice that we should remember from The Fall who carry over into
Refresh my memory. Who's Theron?
He's the elf who is teaching Kaelin how to use magic.
Yeah, he's
sort of like the bard. He's
the bard. Yeah, he's the bard.
He's the bard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. You again. That's why reading The Fall first really does work better than if you go back and read it. Because I don't. To me, it's like it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio gift. Where you're like pointing, like I know this one. I know this character. So for me, the first one, like with Aeson, and then realizing what was up with Theron.
I don't know still why though the other elves are kind of mad all the time at Theron. Did you guys pick up on that? What the deal is with that?
I didn't pick up exactly why, but I kind of felt like they, depending on which pocket or which civilization or something, like they kind of split and went different ways,
Yeah, but Theron seems like a solo dude. Like he doesn't.
He's like that man without a country.
He doesn't hold a grudge, because both these races hold grudges against the other one. He doesn't. So that just makes you friendly to no one.
Yeah.
What makes me really anxious is now we have two mentor figures here in Theron and in.
That means one's got to go, right?
That means one is going to die. Exactly. I'm going to. Okay, which one are you going to kill, Ryan Cahill?
I don't see the elf going.
Yeah, the Galeron or whatever his name is.
But he's now got one hand. Yeah.
He's got one hand.
I see him going, and the reason I see him going is because I see the sun going a darker path, and I think
you mean Dallin?
Okay, Dallin.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna push him right on down that lane.
Dallin, what's the other brother's name?
Eric.
Eric.
Love these two.
Okay, so either Aeson or Theron is going to bite it. We are predicting probably in the next book or something. And
Mike is just smiling.
Mike looking down.
This is fun. I'm rewatching Stranger Things with my kid right now, and he just keeps on predicting who's going to die. And I'm just like, boop, Yeah, so yeah, good practice.
He's the guy with 4 aces when we're parading around our
Well,
4.
remind me, is Farda in this book very much?
Yeah, Sparta is in
Sparta,
this
yeah,
book.
yep.
Actually, I think Sparta might be my favorite character in this book.
Farda might have the best arc between this book and the third book. I'm just gonna put it
Really?
that
Oh,
way.
okay.
It's really
He
crazy.
He doesn't show up very often, but he does have some great scenes, though. I think.
He's always flipping his coin.
Coin, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
the coin
which
thing.
which I actually messaged Ryan when I read it. I was like, was this influenced by Two-Face? You know, he's like, of course.
I got a Two-Face vibe.
I'm
I got
telling
a Two-Face vibe.
I see cinematic, I see comic, there's so many amazing genre influences. I just, it was so cool. It was so cool being a nerd for so many years and then like watching somebody, it's like, oh, this guy's paid attention. You know?
Yeah,
But
but
it
then
goes-
sometimes I would message him and be like, hey, you know, like the Knights, it kind of makes me think of Green Lantern. Did you get that idea from there? He's like, no, I'm not a dork, dude. I didn't read Green Lantern. All right. You know, so sometimes they come through, like there's these things called portal hearts, which are basically like fast travel gates.
Right.
Which I said maybe think of Stargate SG-1. He's like, that's exactly where I got it from. You know, so
Yeah.
there are things like that that do come through. But then I feel like you start to kind of like look for things that aren't actually there.
Oh yeah. Well,
But
always.
what I do like is the coin flip. It goes beyond a gimmick because it really
Yes.
shows you that this dude is really conflicted. Like he is not happy with the role he has right now. He especially doesn't like that twerp that he has to support, who kills Kaylin's father in a kind of
Rendell.
This is a dude who, you know, Farda has some honor still, and
Yeah.
he's not entirely comfortable
He's
with the
conflicted.
role.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gonna. I'm predicting right now at some point in the series, Farda is gonna turn on his bosses,
Brindle.
and he's gonna help the good people in some way or other, in a sacrificial way at some
Don't
point.
say Grendel. He'll start talking about Beowulf.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll lose him for sure. No,
Yeah,
but
don't
you know,
get me
I
going.
think just like Mike said when he compared this to Song of Ice and Fire, I see him is setting the stage, setting his board up, setting all the pieces for these character arcs that I can't believe I'm rooting for this guy now, or I can't believe how far this guy has fallen now, or this woman has fallen now. Those type of character arcs that are mind-boggling, like a magic trick in Song of Ice and Fire, where you will travel with these characters. I see the pieces starting to be set up for that.
Yeah. So George is like, hey, I got this guy committing incest and pushing kids out windows, but you know what? In 3 books, you're going to be fully
You're
on
going to
this
be
guy's
all
side.
in on him. Yeah.
George was good at setting that up. So there's some of that. I wouldn't say it's to that extreme, but yeah, there's some of that, no doubt.
We got to talk about it, the 3 boys and their journey here. So I want to get you guys.
Ryan, Matt, and Perrin. Oh,
You know, I didn't necessarily think of Wheel of Time when I was with those 3
I
because
didn't until
first
I
of all,
started
there's
talking about
no
the series, and people were like, "Oh, I started reading it. It was just too much Wheel of Time for me." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, oh, 3 friends from the same 3 friends? That's your rule
That's
not to
yeah.
break."
the fades. Okay, I see it there, but with the 3 friends, Wrist first of all is nothing like Perrin. I think you could say that Dan and Matt maybe have some similarities as being the comedic relief or whatever, I guess. And then of course Rand and Kaylin, but I think Ryan Cahill is doing his own thing here. And
so.
I really think that these 3 have their own dynamic, which I really enjoyed. That there's their bond. Not just the 3 of them; it's their whole families. I appreciate that we got their village, the glade where they're from. We established their camaraderie. And you even have the village jerk in Fritz, I think his name was.
Yeah.
You think of Rafe from
you think of Rafe. Yep, from Faithful and the Fallen. Yep. But I love the dynamic between these 3. I'd like to get the impressions of everybody of our main kind of these 3 together, if you like, Kaylin and Dan and Wrist. So we'll start with you, John. What did you think of those 3?
Okay, I've read, I think, the first 5 or 6 books of Wheel of Time, and I didn't initially immediately say, "Oh, we got the 3," you know, and then the sister is just like, you know, the Wheel of Time. I didn't see that at all. I went further back. To me, I kind of saw a relationship like Pug and Toman in the Rift War saga. It was just there. There's just feel after feel of that classic fantasy tradition in this. And I love that there was 3 because you got
Or Merry and Pippin. You could say
Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
You got three distinct types of young man growing up, you know, going through that coming of age story that you could get three different vibes of each. And then very much like Rift War as well, I kind of see one of them kind of going the wrong way, you know, and it's like, yeah, I don't want that for him, pull him back. So I like that there was three. I really appreciate it. And it's like, it was such a page turner for me and nothing new. When they go off on their coming of age moment, their hunting moment, you know, and it's like, I couldn't stop reading. I found it habitually readable. Even though it was ground that I might have covered over and over again, there was something, he's that kind of storyteller that he's just by a campfire and you just can't look away. He's just got the gift of telling a story to you. You just have to find out what happens next. And I appreciated them being three distinct different types of young manhood on display in the coming of age trope.
Awesome. Christopher, what about you?
I mean, this pretty much the same. I did get, I briefly got the Wheel of Time vibe right at the start, but it quickly dissipated. Like as soon as you actually knew what the characters are, because they're all unique. And let's be honest, it's like you're young and you're a teen. You're gonna have companions that you connect to, and they're all gonna be different attitudes. You know, you have Rice, who's a little more quieter. He's the bookworm. He's the but in the end, they all get together and just share laughs and banter. And like I said, I just imagine this with, you know, friends that I still hang out with sometimes today. It's like you go right into this at the end of the day, you grab a beer and you talk about you know, your day and people that you might be interested in when you are single, and you know, your hormones are kicking in and all that. And I think that's what Ryan establishes, is that friendship, and that's very important. It's important in a lot of every fantasy we read, and it's not, and that's where it dives away from Wheel of Time, where it's just everything. It's just everyday lives for us, and just set in that fantasy story. So I love the dynamics they all have with each other. You know, Rist and Dane don't always see eye to eye, and that's definitely shown in the pages. But at the end of the day, they're there for each other.
Yeah.
Is it Dane or Dan with an extra in?
I've been
Mike?
saying Dan in my head.
Oh, Dan. Yeah, I'm probably adding in. I'm probably doing two A's.
But I think like Mike has said, Dane's his favorite character. So it's like, do we get another Dane, or is?
No, I didn't. I didn't say nothing. What are you talking about?
Mike, you forget I watch your channel.
The series hasn't shown up in the series yet.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right.
And to end, I mean, I liked getting to know Rist and Dan a little more, and I hope we get more POV from them in future books. We got a few from Rist, and I think there was one POV chapter for Dan, but hey, yeah, that's something to look forward to in the future.
I'm with you, Chris. I thought their friendship was completely believable.
Yeah, and an important part of the whole experience of the story. Now the question is, now that Rist has been kidnapped and is starting, the brainwashing is beginning. I'm predicting, and I don't know why I'm throwing out all these predictions, because
I was going to say, you're the king of predictions, man.
That's the best part.
I'm predicting a moment when
the series will make you do it. You'll have all
Rist is going to, I mean, this is the kind of series where you just love thinking about.
You can't help it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rist is going to be pitted against Kaelin, obviously, at some point using the magic. And Dan is going to be somehow the third party in this, and he's going to have to choose or something. I don't know, but it's not good. I'm a little nervous for Rist at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous for Rist as well.
I'm actually a little nervous for Dan too, because he's hanging out with Dalen, who clearly doesn't like.
Yeah, Dalen's going the wrong way.
Dalen, yeah.
And
so that kind of worries me too. So I'm wondering if there's going to be like this 3 separation at some point.
Means he's doing good character work. If you guys are actually worried already, I like it.
We're worried. We're worried.
The thing about Dan with an extra in though, like he's so he's so compulsive. Like you do have to worry, right? Like he'll throw one too many axes. He'll drink one too many steins.
For sure. So I'm just trying to remind myself of names here because there's so many names to remember. But
It gets better. No,
I was gonna say that probably
I
doesn't
was
let up,
just
right,
looking
Mike?
through the dramatist to be like, wait, who is this?
Yeah, I was gonna say he has a glossary, I think, doesn't he? I think in some of
Yeah.
these.
Well, that might just be in the hardcovers.
So we got to talk about Valeris. I mean, I'm skipping around here, but what the heck? Let's talk about Valeris.
Let's do it.
We did meet other dragons here, like Helios and the others, and we know that there's. I like the stakes that are set up by the fact that if your dragon dies, you're basically an empty
brain,
shell,
yeah.
and you don't really want
Yeah.
to live. I mean, you see what happened to Alvira in here. She
Yeah.
lost all will when
Yeah.
her dragon was killed. That was it. And you got to wonder what Aeson has. I mean, what is it about him that he's been able to survive all this time? We don't even know exactly what happened with his dragon. We just know it happened after the events of the fall. At some point, he lost his dragon. But the stakes are high, and then you have this bond here, and it's. I like what's happening here, and I feel like as Kalen is getting so invested in this relationship, as he's finding Valeris to be kind of the other half of his soul, I'm getting
Yes.
invested in that as well.
Yes.
And I want this fragile little baby dragon to grow, and suddenly, yeah, it's dangerous by the end of this book. You don't want to mess with Valeris here, right? I mean, you might be missing a hand or more.
Or
So
face, yeah.
thoughts on Valeris, guys? Mike, why don't you go first? Thoughts
Yeah,
on
Mike.
First, I was like, who? I just called him Ice at this point because
Oh.
nothing
Yeah.
like you are. But no, I mean, again, what's an easy sell for me is animal companions. What differentiates Ice from the other dragons was okay. Well, those other dragons are cool because I saw what they do when they go crazy and blow shit up. But you're not going questing. You're not cradle to full birth like this, like you are with this one. You see it being born and you quest with it, and I feel like you obviously you're gonna get a little bit more attached to it than any other of the dragons. But I don't want to skip to the end, but that Ice is the MVP at the end of the book. I mean,
Oh,
it gets him out of a horrible situation that you
It
didn't
roasts
expect
the
him to get out
fade.
of. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
badass. So you would think that most people will think, oh, well, it'll be really dangerous when it comes of age. If you've read any dragon fantasy, the second they can light a match, you're in trouble. It doesn't matter how it just might take a little longer to burn you alive. So yeah, it shows that they're dangerous, pretty much from go. And my biggest question was, so where the hell did Aeson get this egg? That was my biggest question with this book.
Well, from Valencia, wherever that is.
Okay, I would
Yeah.
like to know more because why isn't everybody else doing this?
Yeah.
Oh, you know
Well,
what? That's a
That's
legit
a good
question.
There's a
Yeah.
novella called The Ice. Just say,
Oh, okay.
Go find out.
Yeah.
It's important to read those novellas in order, and the order that he published them in. So if you got any
Okay.
questions, let me know.
We appreciate
Well,
that.
you're the mentor. You're not
I'm gonna
going
read The
anywhere.
Exile first, though.
I say that he just sent me an arc of like his new short story, and I'm like, I have no idea where it takes place in the timeline. Me and Johan were talking about it yesterday. I have no idea where it takes place in the timeline, so I have to actually get with Ryan and find out what the deal is.
Yeah, you have to find out so you can tell the rest of us.
Yeah.
I'll try.
You're our
I
conduit.
just say stick with publication order. That's always the safest bet.
So Christopher, John, anything to add about Valeris? And I agree with Mike. He is the MVP at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the end. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
kind of knew. I saw there was. Okay.
I was waiting for that moment for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You're waiting for that moment, and still, when it comes, you're still just like, yes, So I think that's another mark on.
Great long series.
Yeah, mark on Cahill's sheet of you pull that off. One thing I do want to say, Aeson, about I love all the foreshadowing. Like Mike said, it's like you see these engines of destruction at the end of their growth period when what all they can do in this brief moment of cataclysm, but then you get to start over and then like that half soul thing that you said, you get to see that bond grow and you get so invested and it starts to have its own personality. And we've talked in the past, Dr. Chase, about how we love fantasy because we can see so much of the magic that's in our world reflected back to us here. So bringing a bit of that spiritual side of like, that's, half of the metaphysical area, the soul area writ large in a physical form that you can watch grow as this young man comes of age. And I think Aeson, the way I think he can overcome losing is that he becomes a father, right? Like
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have to fill,
Give him some
as a father
purpose.
myself and Mike and Dr. Like, wouldn't that fill some of that void or that hole left that has just made you a shade
Yeah.
by filling it with, raising some child?
I think he'd make you even more overprotective than you already are as a father.
I mean,
and
but
think
he
about,
throws his boys into he's like, you know what? Eric can take care of himself.
yeah, I know, he's pretty
I'll let him
hardcore.
handle it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reading that, I'm like, well, he's a better dad than me. Because no.
I
Yeah,
think he's the dad that throws you in the swimming pool and says, all right, learn how to swim.
Yeah.
he was my dad. Basically, I'm putting my kid in bubble wrap.
I will tell you one thing that where Ryan Cahill surprised me. I wasn't surprised when Palin's parents died. I was, especially the father. I thought I saw that coming. The mother, that was kind of brutal. What happened to Freyas? She was
That was
like,
brutal. That was a
thrown
brutal
through a
scene.
wall, and that was a brutal scene.
And that was
What
by
surprised
Farda.
me-
That was by Farda. That wasn't
Yes, he
Rendell.
threw.
That was Farda. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
was
Part
brutal.
kills
Although,
one and the other baddie kills the other parent. Yeah, I forget
Yeah.
what it is.
Rendell kills the father. And then
Rendell is a
Rendell's a bad man. There's no humanity left there.
yeah, he's a total jerk.
Yeah.
But what did surprise me though, the one death in here that took me by surprise was Rhett, Ella's boyfriend. I
Yeah,
thought,
that
where-
was fucking out of nowhere.
wait, what? I thought we were going somewhere with this, and then boom.
Apparently, he just had to get her out of town. That was his job is
Yeah.
done.
Yep. Poor Rhett. I
Yeah.
mean,
He was the God. What was that character that had a POV? I don't want to say in case people have read. There's a character that has a POV in Malice, Faithful to Fallen. You're thinking, okay, it's gonna be a character you follow the whole series. Oh,
Oops.
Yeah, that's what that was. So.
yeah.
Well, I wonder why you weren't surprised when the father died, Mr. Crushed my month when, and I can't say anything because of spoilers, but
That's in profit of it.
yeah, you gotta, give me that Greek Oedipal moment of the father having to get done in.
Yeah. I mean, it's standard fantasy fare.
I know.
Part of the coming of age is not only are you leaving home, but your parents must die.
You must assume the role of I get it.
Yeah, when you-
It's still
when
not
John-
easy.
When you read Faithful and the Fallen, just if you're a parent over the age of 30, you're basically you're done. You're
Your
toast.
time is up. Yeah.
Well, it's a good time I'm 29.
So, but yeah, he got me there for sure. I am
Yeah.
very concerned for Ella at the moment. We get these tiny little POVs of her throughout, and she's now thank goodness the puppy showed up.
Yeah, she's got Faerun. Why not call it Finmer? It's Faerun, right?
Fainer, I think.
Feiner.
yeah.
I think of
Fainer.
Fenris, like
You're thinking
I
of
thought
I
Fenris.
think of Finmer
yeah.
like from
From
Norse
the wolf,
mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoops.
I mean, I don't think that's a wrong association, though.
Yeah.
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 But she's
Not coming
also
I think
also
I need
ends,
to run,
she
guys.
also
Someone's
ends
knocked
the
on my
book
door.
with,
So hey,
Farda.
I'm so glad you guys are reading this for real.
Yep,
I'm really
Mike.
glad
Thank
you
you for
are.
coming. It was
No,
great
for
to see
real.
you.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying it, Philip. I knew you were going to like it. I wasn't even worried about it, but still, you've only just gotten a taste. Book 2 to me just is like amazing. I think you guys
Can't
are
wait.
Away.
Wow.
And of War and Ruin was my favorite book of last year.
Wow.
Despite the fact that it's like 140 billion pages, it's amazing. I can't wait for you guys.
These
Are you
go
guys,
by so fast.
are you guys
It
planning to
goes
do
really
like 1
fast.
month, or what do y'all do?
We're doing one every other month.
Every other month?
Well, we're skipping a month until the next one, but since the one after that, I think, is a novella, we could do that the very next month,
Cool. Well, I look forward to watching you guys.
Exile,
journey.
yeah.
It's gonna be a good time. Can't wait to talk to y'all
Cool.
about it.
All right, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, y'all
Have a good
one.
trip, Mike.
Appreciate you,
Thanks.
buddy. All right. So let's continue with a Blood and Fire. What do we guys want? What do we want to talk about next? Who is the character we haven't talked about that we should be talking about? I mean, we meet some cool characters in the latter half of this.
Yeah.
When they're going to what's the city called? Belduar? Is that do I have that right?
See, Chris doesn't have a list of cities.
I think I got
don't
it
have
right.
this. I don't have the city, guys.
I don't have my
Belduar
reading glasses
sounds right.
on, so I can't see it very well without my reading glasses, but I think it's Belduar. Yeah.
Baldur,
I think it's
yeah.
right. I think that's right.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah.
I think I was
Okay.
almost pronouncing it like Baldur, like from Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Baldur.
So we meet some cool the giant Asius. We meet some giants.
I was just gonna say, now
Okay.
I saw some Wheel of Time there when that character showed up.
Okay.
To me, that was echoes of, and I can't even remember the character name, but
Laurel, there. Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
that's always with the book and is gonna chronicle the journeys and is the,
Yeah.
you know, I saw a bit of, you know, I saw some echoes there that did strike me. But I love these archetypes showing up that have just a little bit of topspin to them, you know. And I loved it when the dwarves showed up too, and I loved it when they had to well, I'm skipping ahead, but I dug it when the giant showed up because it's not what you would expect, and yet it's still that archetype. It's still comfort food archetype, but it's not exactly what you would expect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
Christopher?
And I'm always a fan of like the introduction of Asius is like when they're doing the proving, and then he's gone again, or they, you know, we meet the other two Jotnar, are they Jotnar, or that the
Yeah,
Jotnars?
it sounds very like
And
Old Norse Jotun. Yeah.
so those are maybe some future characters again that might show up again. And I like the fact that we come back to Asius later in the book too. So it's like he got to have that reunion, and I always love those. I always love when you get that little quick introduction to a character, and then you don't maybe see them for a while, then we come back to them. It's like, oh yeah, I remember them. Kind of like the Exile characters from the Fall coming into Blood and Fire. So
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I also got, I totally see what you're talking about, John, with Loyal and from Wheel of Time. I also got major Ent vibes from
Yes.
Yeah.
these giants because they're almost extinct, right?
Yes,
There's
yes.
a tragic past here, and there's a long memory, and they live long lives, and that kind of thing. So I really like that little twist that we got.
But isn't that, and again, such a wonderful trapping that now that this egg is back into the world, now that Valeris is coming around, we're having these other races that are
Awakening.
mystical,
Yeah, they're
awakening is
awakening.
showing back up, you know.
Yeah. And I don't know if Ryan Cahill knows this or not, but he calls them, I don't know if he says the J as a J or as a Y sound.
Oh,
Jotnar.
Jotnar. Yeah.
Jotnar. Anyway,
Maybe
it
he does
reminds
have
me a lot
some,
of Jotun from Old Norse, and
Mhm.
Ent is actually derived from the same word, Eotun in Old English. So they're essentially from the same word in Proto-Germanic. So
you're probably right, Philip. It's probably Jotnar. Yep.
I bet that's purposeful.
yeah, could be.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, I love those vibes that we're getting there.
Mhm.
That tragicness of them being almost wiped out. And Asius is such a, Treebeard kind of character. You love the guy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's also dangerous and powerful too.
He's another one I worry
As
about,
Treebeard was.
those guardian roles that these characters play are just always like cringing because you're
Yeah.
like, are they gonna make it,
Yeah.
through these
Yeah.
rough
If
stories.
Asius does ever say, "Don't be hasty," I'm gonna clap. So, but who else did we meet here? The elves who swear to protect. These are the kind of the rogue elves. They sort of split on their own, and they're still
Right.
fighting a good fight. Unlike the rest of the elves, who kind of, again, Tolkien vibes here. Most of the elves are just, you know what, we're done with the rest of you.
Yeah.
Stay out of
Yeah.
our forest,
Yeah.
and to hell with the rest. But these elves are still engaged. They're still fighting the good fight, and the five of them. Although one does die in the process.
Elisar.
Yeah. But what did you think of the elves?
For me, the one thing I liked was that that conversation discussing honor and how it is explained to Kellen what honor means to these particular elves, and they're not going to necessarily obey Kellen's orders. They are going to protect him, but they're not necessarily going to do what he wants. And I liked that relationship with them. So it's like, we have this honor, we are going to do our duty, but you can't tell us what to do. And so
I like the cultural difference that you
Yeah.
mentioned there. That's pretty cool.
And I love the moment, the character moment that brings about. You know, they have this honor bound thing that we're going to protect you, and then Kaylin comes, it's like, well, you know, your honor is more important to me, you don't really care about me, you made your vow, and that's what it's all about. And it's that petulant youth, you know, coming out a little bit. And then when he gets a little bit further down the path and he starts to realize exactly what that honor oath meant, and what he's been railing against, and starts to realize that some of the childish mistakes he has to leave behind as he understands the larger world that he's moving into, this magical world he's moving into now that he's got this egg, and these races are coming back that have been, you know, like you said, the elves have curtained themselves off except for Legolas in the band, you know. I mean, you know, it's so many wonderful callbacks in so many great ways. But I really love the elves in that they brought about that character moment. Those people that, whether you realized it or not, they were attaching themselves to you and what you represent as a possible leader for them, and to come upon the responsibility of being a leader and growing into a manhood and understanding that, I thought was such a great character moment.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that coming of age, you know.
Yes.
You got to remember that, you know, Colin's a young guy, and this was that character growth moment that, you know, we look for as a reader. We look for those moments of growth. And like you said, John, you know, he got that clarity. At first he was stubborn. He didn't, you know, he was not happy with the arrangement, and it's like, oh, you're just here for yourselves, not me.
Right.
And then having that counter moment, realizing what that meant to them and the sacrifices they are making on their side. Yeah.
And it happens several times. I want to give all this up because I have to go protect my friend. Well, you can't do that because you represent this now. Coming to terms with that, coming to terms with the most important thing in my life as a young person. I remember as a young man, the most important thing in my life is my friends. I live, I die for my friends, you know. And as you grow up, you may not have those same friends. You find other things that are more important that you, as you grow up and move on. And it's like, I saw a lot of those echoes of my own journey into manhood in this coming of age tale. And I really appreciated him to take those character beats and the time to do that, to start off where friendship was everything. And then you have these character moments where it's like, you've got to let go or you're not going to be there when destiny calls. So I really appreciated a lot of that.
Well, see, as Kalen becomes more powerful, he actually has less free will. He has fewer options. He has to understand, hey, these elves have been fighting for hundreds of years. And what do you represent to them? That's your role now. Your individual desires and your you know, your likes and dislikes matter less and less as you have to step into this role. And that's a sacrifice, you know, that he needs to understand that and grow into it. I also
But that's good leadership, is accepting that sacrifice, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what it's all about.
And that's the thing I loved about going back to the Dragon Ice. I love that he has quickly taken responsible for Ice's well-being. And a lot of that, of course, has to do with the bond, because he's going through the same emotions, the same trauma. I love how Ryan just wraps up when they're in battle, and he goes back and forth between the two in his mind, with feeling Valeris in the back of his mind, and going and utilizing that, his strength and energy. And I love the responsibility. I think that was his first moment, I think, after we lose Rist, is he goes immediately into, I can't lose any more people. I can't. That's always in the back of his head. And he is starting to take some of those responsibilities, whether he realizes it or not. And I think that was just really good for that character development for Kalen.
I really appreciate that he had Kalen counting the number of people he was killing. Everyone was like, it took a toll on him. And
Absolutely.
you know, so many times you see stories where they kill the baddies and they just run along and never think about it again. So I love that there is an impact on his psyche,
especially for somebody who's not used to killing or doesn't kill. You know, I love that it stays in his head. And then of course he starts getting that numbness, like, I've killed people I lost my count, but it's still in the back of his head, even
Yeah.
if he did lose count of the people he has killed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love also that we do have some distinctions between these elves. The elf that we know the most is, of course, the one who was the bard in the beginning, Baron. But even among the elves of Aravel, there's Galeron, who seems like a kind of a mean dude and he starts. I like what's developing though there between him and Kaelin, and how he's like, I'm gonna fence with you now. I'm gonna spar
Yeah.
with you, boy. Let's see what you
And
can do.
ruthlessly too. And
Yeah.
Ruthlessly.
Yeah.
And
I'm
then
gonna
he
do it.
loses the hand at the end. He's like, yeah, it's all right. I'm right-handed anyway. And
Yeah,
I
I'm good.
suck at the bow. It's all
Yeah.
right. You know,
I'm gonna do it because I know I won't hold back, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's
I
Valeris.
like that moment that Caleb is like in his thought bubble, is like, what if I miss this? What if I miss this parry? You know? What do you have, like, he questions like his
Yeah.
you know, those sparring battles. So it's like, what
But
if
those
I
aren't those important moments too? Like he's got to be put through the ringer, because as a reader, don't we know, like every death takes a toll, and which is great. He's not going to fling himself into violence without thinking about what it costs, which I really appreciate as a reader. But also as a reader, you're knowing it's like, dude, you're going to have to give up a lot more people on this journey. Like
Yeah.
it's going to happen. You know, you're going to have to get pushed and pulled and put through the ringer here, because this is just the beginning, you know.
Yep, that is for sure. You also have, in contrast to him, to Galeron, is Varil, the healer elf, who's just a perfect gentleman, very polite, and so I love that you have some, and of course you have the twins that Dan is all after, and and all of that. And you get distinctions there that I like, and at the same time, enough nods to traditional elves in fantasy that this feels familiar and fun. And the same with the dwarves. You get, when we meet the dwarves, they have some personality immediately, especially
Yeah.
Queen Kira, who's initially kind of a jerk to Kaelin, and then later on,
definitely rough around the edges? Yeah.
seems like she's kind of got the hots for him in the most uncomfortable possible way. So,
Yeah.
are we predicting a
He
future
did see
love
her
story
naked,
here?
so.
Maybe.
Are you going out on a limb and making another prediction?
So
I don't
how do
know.
you guys picture the doors? Do you just imagine them more like I don't see them as like the stocky doors we're kind of familiar with. I do kind of feel like they're more like just
More human.
Yeah.
more human. Yeah.
They struck me as like
Yeah.
being right around 5 foot. I mean, not like you say. I just saw them as a more
Still
petite.
proportioned, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a proportional level. Yeah.
I still feel like they're probably a bit stockier, but he doesn't really think
Stockier.
about that much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was picturing them as stocky.
I always, yeah, I mean that's my go-to with dwarves too. Is
Yeah.
like
I didn't for some reason.
But
I don't know why.
but I did get a little more of a height, maybe a little bit of a different height.
Yeah, I think he does say they're shorter, but not as short as Kaelin had pictured from the stories.
Yeah, I think they said something that made me adjust what I was seeing. But what about that when we get to the dwarves and we take that amazing railed airship into the mountain?
Now that's something. Yeah.
Wasn't that everything? Like that was just the right amount of topspin about, oh, we're going into the Misty Mountains now. We're going to crack open the big doors and go to where the elves have locked themselves away. And it's like this airship on rails with this cool pilot. And it's like,
Used
that
through
was
magic.
awesome. Yeah,
You
that was
have to use
awesome.
magic to navigate it. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I still love Caitlin's thing where it's like you built this amazing thing and you have these like horrible bridges to get across to them.
Yeah, and the guy's like, yeah, good point.
Yeah, we should do something about that.
Yeah, but I just really liked that moment. It was one of those moments where that's truly magical. I haven't seen that before, and it was just the right amount of whimsy and magic that it truly swept me away.
Yep. We also have the Mort d'Arthur, the death of Arthur in this book.
We do.
The king is dead, long live the king.
Mhm.
Son becomes at the end the new king, and there's a traitor among them who I like that this traitor is very conflicted. He was trying to protect his city, so he was not entirely like loathsome, And he changes his mind at the last minute too. So it's kind of yeah. I thought that was a nice touch. He's not just some like worm tongue traitor type character here. He's a little bit. Yeah, I get this guy.
I mean, other than Fane, I really thought all of the, I mean, I wouldn't even call them villain, but all the people that are obstacles to the hero's journey that our group is going through, had very sound motivations, very human motivations, and weren't just. I really appreciated that. It
Yeah.
seemed like it happened over every one of them that was. I don't think Fane's a truly human character. Every one of them that was or started out a human character had true moments of doubt and moments of conflicted.
Yeah, except
I
for the
think
guy who kills Kalen's
Well,
friend.
Rendell
yeah,
is
Rendell.
just
Yeah, Rendell's an ass.
I got no time for Rendell.
But no, I agree, John. I think and I still think he does have that, good versus evil. I think that there is still kind of that line, but he gives that evil side, that conflicting side too. And
He gives a little bit of third dimension.
He gives them a 3D
Yeah,
dimensional
yeah.
effect.
And I liked Stefan. I liked him.
And I love that we get little bits and pieces of a POV from especially Sparta. And I think that I like that. I like when authors go into a little bit of the antagonist or headspace too.
Yeah. I also like that even among the good characters, Kalen is not wrong when he says to Theron, I think it was, or maybe it was to both of them, his mentors, you guys are just using me here. You're throwing me into this. You're doing it because you want to manipulate the dwarves, and I'm like a chess piece to you guys. And he, he's not wrong that everybody wants to use him,
No, and that theme was so beautifully played out. The boy king giving that St. Crispin's Day address in the land of the dwarves that rally them all to come to the aid of the city. Just I don't know how many of the classics he's read. He's read enough fantasy. He has all the influences that we love that we've talked about, that have been mirroring these classics all the way back to where it's such a beautiful timeline all the way through of story. I just really, when that St. Crispin's Day speech happened, I was like, yes, I was so down for that.
Yeah, a good moment. So final thoughts, guys. Are we ready for is there anything we missed that you want to make sure we talk about, or shall we move on to final thoughts?
What do you guys think of the magic system? What do you guys, or if I mean, the one thing I appreciate about the magic that Ryan does is it's a mystery. It's not like hard written down, here's the instructions on how to use this magic. It just exists in the world. I'm a big fan of elemental magic, particularly.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it in my own work a little bit with the use of elements, fire, water, ice. And I like how Ryan just gives you enough detail when it's being used to get an idea of how it's being used without like, step one, do this and that, so I love that it's a mix of, I love that it's a mystery. And I think I've always been more drawn to soft magic than hard. I like that it just exists. That's what makes it magic.
Yeah.
John, your thoughts on that?
I thought he did a great Tightwire act, right? Like it is, I mean, Gandalf does magic because Gandalf does magic, right? I mean, he's one of the, and then he'll progress from gray to white or, whatever. But there's very few rules there. It's just, he's not of us, he's magic. But there is just enough elemental magic there to it. It's like, well, I can sink my teeth into it. You've got to reach down into the molecules, and when you make the water ice, and it's got just enough of something that I think that as we've all gotten older, we're maybe a little bit more of a discerning audience. It's got just enough of the physical universe I understand that makes me suspend my disbelief a little bit. So he walks a great tightrope of, well, it's magic, but there's just enough to make me suspend my disbelief by adding the elemental bit to it.
Yeah, I like it. I like Christopher, prefer what the kids these days call soft magic. So
I don't know. I like them both. I really like Mistborn. I know Christopher wasn't a big fan, I don't think, but I kind of like when everything has rules. But nothing beats Gandalf. So I appreciate a tightrope walk too.
yeah, there's a place for, it's a spectrum really.
Oh
And
yeah.
there's a place for the real,
Absolutely.
Sanderson type hard magic. Let's get into the nuances of how this works, almost like it's a science. And then there's
Well, what is magic but science that you
Yeah.
don't quite yet
And
understand?
I do appreciate, on a note with Brandon Sanderson, I do appreciate what he was doing. I have so much respect for the author and what
absolutely.
he created. For absolutely. I guess it just didn't really, the actual conveying of this magic didn't quite click with me. It kind of took me out, but
Yeah.
that's okay. You know.
Cool.
Well, what did you think, Dr. Chase?
Of the magic specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to keep using the phrases soft enough for me, and to leave an element of mystery and wonder. And I
Mhm.
like that. And at the same time, what you'd see more typically in a kind of a hard magic kind of story, we do get to see the character figuring out, okay, here's how this magic works.
Yeah.
If I do this, and the reader's figuring it out along with the character, which is a fun part of the journey. That's why Sanderson is so beloved as an author, because a lot of people really enjoy getting to figure out along with the character, here's how this works, and watching the character become more powerful and feeling empowered along with the character. So
Yeah.
that's cool. It totally has its place, and I like that Ryan Cahill has left it, soft enough for me to still feel there's a sense of wonder and mystery about this. So yeah, I like it. I really do. I think it's well handled, along with the other tropes, which again, for me, trope is not a bad word. Trope is it's a tool, and he's done well with his tropes. And I'm really pleased to be starting this series, and really pleased to be discussing it with you two, and hopefully with Mike again, and with Angela. She's able to join us in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Final thoughts, though, guys?
John?
I mean, I'm very excited. To me, it's like this is just, it's like being at a big chocolate bar and not having to watch calories, to hang out with great friends and talk about cool books. Like this is what is there a better thing to do? And at the same time, I really had a great time with these, and all I hear from Mike and everyone else is it just keeps getting better. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. Christopher.
Absolutely. It was an enjoyable read. It kind of brought me back to those days of 90s and 2000s, and but still with a modern voice, just telling a new story with these elements that we grew up with, and why we love this genre so much. Things I hope for to see in the future. I hope we get maybe some more POVs from some of the limited
I want
ones.
more of Ella, for example.
More Ella.
I think Ella's going to be pretty big.
If I had one gripe in this this first book, I would have liked more Ella. I think it would have made maybe a more impact with the Rhett portion of that, if we already had a little more of Ella and that relationship. But it still was a surprise, like you said, Philip. That moment was still such a surprise, and I think it was a needed surprise. And so I do think we will get more Ella, and maybe some of the other characters. Of course, Riss, we want to follow his story more. Maybe a couple more with Dan, and yeah, we'll see. I'm hoping because he explored multiple POVs in the fall, I hope to get more of that in future installments. But following Caitlin's story in this first book was just incredible and enjoyable. So yeah, I'm ready to continue for sure.
I think Ella is going to be. I think that moment that did surprise us of Rhett being taken out so quickly and viciously at that moment. I do think I think Ella has become a truly powerful character. I think that was a lesson to her about how fleeting life can be, and I think the character that flips a coin. What's his name?
Wrist.
Oh, Farda.
Farda. I
Sort of,
think
yeah.
I think the time spent. I think there's going to be enough time.
He's
spent
on the
between-
boat with her now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He
Ella
picked her
and
up,
Farda
at the
are
very end of the game.
they're gonna rub off on each other, and both are going to be changed for that relationship, and it's going to be a great journey to watch. She's going to be a very, very powerful character, I think.
I like it.
Hopefully Fenrir hangs on to her.
Also, I think that somehow the Knights of Acheron are going to enter into Ella's arc.
Oh,
That's right.
That could be
Yeah.
good. That could
Yeah.
be good.
That's a good thought. Yeah.
Okay. More
like that.
predictions, folks.
Yeah, we're no lack of predictions from Dr. Chase today.
It's great when you can come up with fan theories for books. I love it.
Well, you're in a book. You're in a book in a series when you start to, in between books, write it yourself. Like that's that's always a good sign.
It's because when you're done turning the pages, you want to keep turning pages and
You're still going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another series that I'm just currently have started, the Belgariad, and I got definite vibes from that as well. It's such that traditional vibe for me. It's really cool.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, you two. I really enjoyed this, and I'm thankful to Mike as well for taking some time to hang out with us as well. And like I said, hopefully Angela will be able to join us the next time. But this has been great. I've had a blast reading this and chatting about it with you guys. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. I will have links in the description to all the channels who are involved in this read. And next time we will be on Talking Story to talk. I don't know the name. What are the names of the books we're talking about next time, or the book?
Okay, the next book we're reading.
The Exile.
No. What's next is there's not a novella between.
There isn't a novella.
Oh,
there isn't a novella between book 1 novel and book 2 novel.
We'll figure this out.
I think the next, and Light.
Of Darkness and Light.
The next book we're reading is Of Darkness and Light, and the next talk will be at the end of July, beginning of August, somewhere right around that time.
Yeah, we'll negotiate that because
we'll figure that out.
All right, cool. Thank you so much, everybody, and until next time.